The transfer portal is officially open, and Indiana football is very, very active.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get the season started with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you all. Bear with me a little bit, as I had an entire episode recorded today for you, a full 30-minute Locked On Hoosiers episode, and national streaming service outages that we use caused that to not record properly. And so here we are. I was able to run home during work, during the lunchtime, and get one recorded. So a little bit shorter, but still wanted to get stuff there for you because we are your team every day. We care about you here at Locked On, and there's a lot going on with Indiana football and Indiana basketball. The men's basketball team handles Minnesota in the season opener for the Big Ten, plus the Indiana women are 1-0 in Big Ten play as well. But I want to talk about the transfer portal for Indiana football because it's officially open, right? It is open as of Monday, December 9th. And so you've seen dozens, hundreds of names that have entered the transfer portal. And of course, we saw quite a few names of people who were intending to enter the portal. Indiana had several of those types of guys that we have known for several weeks. And so to this point, as we sit here right now, there are no major losses for this Indiana football team in the transfer portal. But I do want to remind you, right, as the portal is open as of yesterday on Monday, and you have these several weeks that the window is open, Indiana being a playoff team gives us some benefits, but it also gives us some disadvantages as well, right? Because any team that makes the college football playoff, you then have an extension on the portal window. Any of your players after the season ends have 5 days to enter the portal. And so for right now, Indiana's focused on the college football playoff. Yes, Curt Cignetti told us on Sunday that they are looking in the portal, and there's some names that we're going to go over in just a second, non-quarterback names today, and they are looking in there. But they're also focusing on the college football playoff, which means they're not having a ton of those conversations with guys on the team of, hey, we think it's probably the right decision for you to move on. I think we need to go a different direction, whatever the case may be, right? However those conversations need to go, those just aren't happening right now at Indiana because the season is still going. And so while that is a benefit for us in terms of, hey, we get to focus on the college football playoff, which still sounds pretty cool to say, does it not? You're also at a disadvantage because think of all these other teams that are in bowl practice or just flat out didn't make a bowl game. They are 100% fully committed to working on the transfer portal. And you're going to miss out on some guys because of it, but you're also in the college football playoff, so you can't complain all that much. And the quarterback position has been one for Indiana that has been highlighted by so many of you, the fans, and from people like me doing podcasts, because the quarterback position is still the most important one. And as I've told you, in this era of college football with NIL and transfer portal, you cannot afford to not get somebody in the cycle unless you are just stacked out of the high school ranks in the quarterback room. And while I think Indiana has good quarterbacks with Taven Jackson and Tyler Cherry, that's not good enough for me. I think you still need to go get somebody else. More on that as the week goes on. But in terms of non-quarterbacks that Indiana should be focusing on in the portal, before you start talking names, you've got to talk positions, right? You've got to think about, okay, what does Indiana need? What do we need to be better at or could use more depth at moving in to 2025? Well, I think you look in the trenches. I think you have to start on the offensive line, which has been very solid this year for us here in Bloomington. But some injuries have made that shift. You've seen some cracks in that foundation. And at the end of the day, you can never have enough offensive linemen or defensive linemen for that matter, which Indiana has reached out to a couple that we'll talk about in a minute. I also look at playmakers on the outside offensively, talking about receivers and tight ends, because you've got some good ones, but you're also losing some good ones as well. And you have to go get exciting names and exciting players for whoever your quarterback is going to be. And you bring in a big time transfer or two at the receiver position, and that will then help you bring in a quarterback in the transfer portal as well. You look at the defensive side of the football. We mentioned the defensive line where, yeah, you're going to lose some big names there. I think at the linebacker spot as well, which Indiana has reached out to also. And then guys in the secondary where, yeah, you've had an All-American and D'Angelo Pons back there, but you can never have enough corners and safeties in the secondary because injuries happen, the yips happen, guys just don't pan out. And you're bringing in quite a few in your 2025 recruiting class. But how comfortable and confident are you to throw a bunch of freshmen in the backfield and the back end of your defense to start the 2025 season? I don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to because of necessity or they're just that good. And until they get here and we see them in action, we're just not really going to know. So who are some of the names that Indiana has reached out to or guys that have confirmed that Indiana has given them an offer? Remember, this list is going to change. This list is going to grow. It's going to get bigger, sexier, and more attractive as the days and weeks go on. But a guy that I think is a big highlight is James Thompson, the defensive lineman from Wisconsin, a redshirt senior, okay, who can have one more year of eligibility, somebody that Indiana's trying to get in to this transfer portal class. And he's going to fall into that category of not many years left, but a lot of years under his belt. And he's going to give you so much experience and so much confidence. But then you look at somebody like a Santana Hopper, who's a redshirt sophomore. He's been in college for 3 years, but still has several years of eligibility left. The defensive lineman from App State. He is the opposite of Thompson from Wisconsin, where you bring in not a one-year rental, but somebody that can bring a couple of years of experience and also several years of eligibility remaining. You have to have complements like that and have several players that fall into both categories. In terms of playmakers on the outside, like I mentioned, how about Joseph Williams, the wide receiver from Tulsa, a guy that Indiana has reached out to, and he confirmed via his social media that the Hoosiers have offered him a scholarship as a freshman to come through the transfer portal. I also look at Mgbako. I hope I say his name properly, from Nebraska, the redshirt junior at linebacker, a corner from Brown. You also have a running back from Penn. Can never have enough running backs, right? And then another linebacker is a redshirt junior, a guy that I'm really impressed with, 6'1", 225, Garland Bernard, who is from Kennesaw State down in Georgia. That is a guy who I think you feel really good about, somebody who's athletic and would elevate your defense immediately. It's guys like that the Hoosiers have reached out to and want to get on campus and just build this transfer portal class. Now, more people will enter as the minutes, hours, days, and months go by, or weeks go by, and then Indiana will get active once the season is over. But that's an idea of what Indiana's doing non-quarterback-wise in the transfer portal. Well, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll flip over to basketball as the Indiana men looked pretty good last night, right? Against Minnesota. They're 1-0 in Big Ten play, and so are the ladies. We'll talk about that coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get the season started and really continue the NFL season as we're down to the last couple of weeks, man. Really crazy to think about with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. You could have put $5 on Indiana to beat Minnesota last night in the Big Ten opener. If you were a new customer and you did that, they would have given you $150 just like that. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks is the go-to place for you to get your Christmas gift. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, you can score an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience. And the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Visit omahasteaks.com. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here and bearing with us on this little bit of a different day, but I'm still making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. Be sure if you are on the video side on YouTube that you like this video, right? That gets it out there for the algorithm. People can find it. Be sure you're sending this to all your family and friends too. If they're Indiana people, they need to be here. They need to be a part of what we're building at Locked On Hoosiers. So liking the video helps us with that. Commenting on the video helps us with that as well. Who are some names that you think Indiana should go after in the transfer portal? Non-quarterbacks. All right, that's what today is about, non-quarterbacks. So give me some of those names that you want to see as well. And then be sure, if you have not already, to subscribe to the channel. Here's a live counter of our subscribers, okay? 3,791. Yes, I'm pushing for 4,000 subscribers before the start of the new year. Is it a risk or a push? Yeah, it is. But I think we can get there, and I want you to be a part of it. So thank you so much for that. And for everybody listening on audio as well, you're a big part of this too. So thank you so much for your support on there as well. All right, let's talk a little Indiana basketball on our way out here as the Hoosiers look pretty good in their Big Ten opener. 82-67 is what the men do on a Monday night inside of Assembly Hall. We were the last team in the conference to play a Big Ten game, which don't know why that is, but was interesting, and we looked pretty good doing it. I can't complain a whole lot. I actually was very impressed by how we played in this game. And it started on the defensive end of the floor, right? After the hot start from Minnesota, which it was a hot start. And that's going to happen, right? In basketball, you're going to get teams that start the game hot or start a half hot or in the halves hot. Like, that's going to happen. It's a streaky game at times. And you knew watching this game, at least I could feel, that Indiana wasn't playing bad defense. Minnesota just made some shots, man. They made tough layups. They made tough jumpers, pull-ups, step back, crossover. They were doing all sorts of mess, and they were knocking them down. Now, Indiana had their own streak as well, and a kind of great start to the game. Not as good, but pretty close to what Minnesota was doing. But I felt in those first, 7 or 8 minutes of that stretch to start the game, that it wasn't going to last. And again, Indiana's pressure on the basketball, their communication, their helping, they were doing the right things 90% of the time. And so I knew, or I felt, that once Minnesota stopped making big-time shots, that everything would be okay. And it was. And I think the defensive effort and energy for 40 minutes from start to finish, start of the first half, end of the first half, start of the second half to the end of the second half, it was really, really good. Were there a little spots in the second half that it got a little lazy? Sure. But for the most part, I was really impressed with the defensive effort. And you see what this team can be when they play with that type of passion, when they play with that energy. Folks, for an Indiana team that built like this one, if they're only going to give up an average of 67 points a game, which is what they did against Minnesota, they're going to win a lot of games. And you pair that with 82 points offensively, this team's going to win a lot of games. Yes, I know that's how math works. Thanks, right? But you get what I'm saying here. You can see what the defense can do, and you saw glimpses of what the offense can do. And I'm not saying Minnesota's this world-beating, gonna win the Big Ten type of team, but we're not going to take for granted any win in this conference. That's why the women should be happy too, because they beat Penn State in their opener with a threat from Southern Indiana the game before. And remember, they got waxed. We got waxed by North Carolina just a couple of games ago. Don't forget, though, that women's team has 2 top 25 wins on their resume. But I loop them in this conversation because A, want to shout them out and show some love. But B, we're not overlooking any sort of conference win because they're going to be hard to come by this season. And we need to acknowledge that and appreciate that. Now, did the Indiana men have a lot of things going for them on Monday? Yeah, absolutely. Monday night, home game, Big Ten opener, not the hardest opponent. Like, yes, you should have won this game. We were the favorite, we won, and we covered. But I was happy to see the way that we did it. And with all the defensive greatness, the offense looked really, really good too. And your Mr. Consistencies of Oumar Ballo, Mackenzie Mgbako, and Malik Renew did exactly what they were supposed to do, right? This is what you have to have from these guys time in and time out, night in and night out. You had 16 points from Malik Renew, 7 of 10 shooting, 7 boards, 4 assists. Perfect stat line for Malik. He also paired that with Mackenzie Mgbako, who had 13 on a poor shooting night, 5 of 12, knocked down a 3, grabbed 3 boards. Mackenzie, not his best game, but good to see him hopefully coming out of that rut just a little bit. And then Oumar Ballo. This is the one that I want to highlight here. 18 points, 5 of 5 shooting, did not miss from the floor. He also shot 11 free throws. Made 8 of them. I'm good with that. If you're getting to the line and shooting 11 times a game, fine by me. He also paired that with 7 boards, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. So those 3 guys did their job. And I normally would be very, very, very concerned and upset if I saw 3 combined points from Miles Rice and Trey Galloway, but we finally got some support off the bench, which we have not been seeing in the previous games. You get 16 from Bryson Tucker, the most in his young career, and you get 14 from Cannon Carlisle, a guy that has missed the last several games due to injury. If you get that, you can afford to not have Rice and Galloway play their best games. And the support off the bench was crucial in this matchup. Now, Luke Goody's got to start making some shots. I'm just saying it like it is. He's got to start knocking them down. But if he does, good things are going to happen. And I'll say this on our way out. Oumar Ballo is a really good player. He's going to be an all Big Ten player. First, second, third team, we don't know. But he's going to be on those Big Ten teams at the end of the year. And Indiana is a very consistent squad when he's on the floor. Nobody's going to pull away from this team most of the time when he's on the floor. And Indiana has the 2-man game option with him and Malik, the post presence offensively and defensively. You're a very consistent team with Oumar Ballo. But I'm going to say something here, and I'm going to defend it in later episodes. Indiana basketball is a more dangerous team with the smaller lineups on the floor. LaFonso Ellis mentioned that on the Big Ten Network broadcast last night, and I agree with him. The smaller guard lineups of Galloway or Rice or Carlisle or Goody with Mgbako, those guys get after it. They create turnovers and they run. And this team in transition, you saw it last night. They took advantage of very poor Minnesota transition defense, and they outscored them a lot to a little in that category. That stretch in those smaller lineups are more dangerous than the lineups with the big guys, but it is a little less inconsistent. More on that as we go. but I'm impressed with Indiana winning 82-67. Again, shout out to the women for beating Penn State the other night as well in their Big Ten opener. They've got a couple more non-conference games. The Indiana men, they have Nebraska on the road coming up on Friday, and more on that in later episodes. Thank you so much for being here. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Really do appreciate you. We have a full episode, hopefully on time for you tomorrow on video and audio. Again, be sure you like it, comment, subscribe, and follow us however you can, YouTube or your audio platforms. This is your go-to spot, a free daily podcast talking Indiana athletics. We're back tomorrow. All right, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.